I'm George Espy with the Community Foundation, and thank you for coming to this grant application workshop. Just to be clear, this is not a grant writing workshop. This is an application workshop. We'll talk about our process and the application. We'll walk you through it, try and answer some questions. The Nonprofit Partnership sponsors grant writing workshops. If that's an interest of yours, please contact Bob Wooler at NPP and take advantage of that resource. It's an important resource, and it's locally available, so Bob scheduled those periodically throughout the year, so I would encourage you to look into that, also into the other capacity building workshops that are offered through NPP. This is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to do an overview of the process, of the different types of grants that we make. The online registration process you have copies of the grant application right there before you. We'll actually work through that in a little bit, so you'll be able to ask any questions you want to ask about the grant application or what we mean by this or what you should do. Try to carry all that. This is an informal time together, so don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask questions as we go. We don't need to delay questions to the end. If we're not clear about something, if you're in a particular issue, please raise your hand and we'll be glad to try to deal with it. We can't obviously answer all your questions about your particular project, but about the process itself or the application, those kinds of things. Be glad to try to help you with that. So, grant making plan. We have 4 different kinds of grants. We have Helping Today grants, Shaping Tomorrow grants, urgent grants, and capital campaign grants. And we'll talk just a little bit about each of those today. But first I want to make sure that we're clear about who's eligible to apply for a grant from us. We don't give grants to individuals. We do give grants to tax-exempt organizations. Tax-exempt defined as, do you have your letter from the IRS? Are you a 501c3, perhaps a 501c4? That's what you'll need to do. If you're not that, then we'll talk about what you do. But you have to be a 501c3 in order to apply to us, and you need to be operating primarily within Erie County. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do things elsewhere, or if you are headquartered elsewhere, you can't apply for a grant. However, a lot of your work, let's say you are headquartered in State College, and you have a satellite work program here, that's okay as long as you are actively working here in Erie County. You are eligible to apply only once a year. However, we have 4 different kinds of grants. So, I suppose you could apply 4 times under each of those categories. But once you've received a grant, it takes a year. If you're Helping Today grant or a Shaping Tomorrow grant, it takes a year before you can apply again. Okay, any questions about that stuff? Yes, ma'am.
Does that mean if you are awarded the grants that you would have to?
That's a good point. Excellent. If you apply and for some reason you're not funded, you can apply again. That's all right. But if you receive a grant, then you got to hold out a wait. There are hundreds of nonprofits, as you know, here in Erie County. If we kept giving grants to the same organizations, there'd be a lot of people that wouldn't be able to get a grant. So that's why we have that rule. Now, you may be a nonprofit, but you may not be a 501c3. So what happens if you are a nonprofit, but you don't have your IRS determination letter yet, your 501c3? Then you need a fiscal sponsor. What the fiscal sponsor do and how do you get one and all that stuff. I want to make sure you're clear about that. So if you don't have one, you must apply through a sponsor. You cannot apply yourself if you're not a 501c3. You have to have a sponsor to do that. Now, who or what is a sponsor, and what do they do if you want them to be your fiscal sponsor? They need to be the 501c3. Since we can only give grants to 501c3s, if you're not one, you need to have somebody else apply for you who becomes your fiscal sponsor. But you don't just pick a nice person whom you can cajole into being your fiscal sponsor. There needs to be some connection between what they do and what you do. So their work should be somehow or other related to yours. So I don't know. Think of you're a dog training organization, and you go to the Economic Development Company or corporation to do it. That's not, they're not in the business of dog training. You might have to go to the Humane Society to be that. So there needs to be some connection. They don't need to be running your program, but there needs to be some logical reason why you selected this one. Nobody's going to The IRS is not going to come knocking at your door and say, ooh, wrong person, but there needs to be some connection there. Because they're the ones that submit the grant for you. Now, you could write it, but technically, when we come to the point of the application and the organizational information that's in the application, that organizational information is your sponsor's information, not your information. Your information comes out on the project part of the application. But if you're using a fiscal sponsor, the organization is your fiscal sponsor. Okay. Your fiscal sponsor submits the grant and the evaluation reports. You know, if you get a grant from us, we're going to ask you to submit a 6-month or a 1-year evaluation report on how you did and what you did. Well, that, because the grant went to the fiscal sponsor has to submit the reports. Of course, you're going to write the report, but it's going to come in from them. All right? The fiscal sponsor accepts responsibility to ensure the proper use of the funds. I mean, they're on the hook for it. You know, if you screw up somehow or other, I don't mean that. I mean, of course, you would never do that. If somebody else would, you know, run away with the funds or do something, the person on the hook for that is the person that applied and got the grant, which was a fiscal sponsor. So they are responsible. They have to accept responsibility to ensure that you use the funds properly. And this little phrase is actually from the IRS code of fiscal sponsor. The fiscal sponsor retains complete discretion and control as to the use of the funds. So you need to have a good conversation with your fiscal sponsor to make sure that they understand that the money's going to come to them, but it's really, you're the one that's going to use that money. They can't take 50% of that and say, well, you know, we got the grant, we're going to use it. But they could, because they retain complete discretion and control. And then they also need to maintain records that the funds were used properly. Our suggestion is, we don't require this, our suggestion is that money is segregated in their accounts so that it doesn't get commingled with their operational dollars and somehow or other gets used, and you have a program that you were supposed to use that money for, and it's not there. So it's best for you to have some kind of a formal agreement. It can be just an email exchange. Yes, I'll be a fiscal sponsor. This is what I agree to do. This is what we agree to do. So you've got some record of that, and then make sure they understand what's required of them should you need or want to use a fiscal sponsor. Stop. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I have a question relating back to what this young lady had asked for
Okay.
the fiscal sponsor. When you had indicated that if you apply for a grant, and I'll say the Helping Today grant, and it was not funded, and you can reapply again, is that reapplying for the same quote-unquote project or a different project, meaning like the grant was not funded because we did not feel that your project was acceptable in our eyes, or we just ran out of money?
Good question.
Okay.
You can submit the very same project if you want to. It's probably not a great idea to do that, only because what we're going to do is once we review it, the board makes a decision, and let's say for some reason or other they decide not to fund your grant this time. You're going to get a letter from us, but you're also going to get a phone call from us where we're going to talk with you about the reasons for the decline.
Okay.
It may be that you weren't clear about the collaboration, or the need statement, or the budget, or something or other was not quite what it needed to be. We'll give you that feedback so that when you write a grant on this, you could write for the same project if you wanted to. You can take advantage of those comments when you rewrite the grant. You could submit the entire grant again if you wanted to, but if you were turned down once and we gave you some suggestions and you come back to us again, the chances are pretty good you're going to get the same result. But you are certainly able to apply for the same project a second time, hopefully using some of the information that we gave you in feedback the first time around. Any other questions about this? All right, good. So let's move on and talk about the Helping Today grants. Pat's going to go over the high level for this. I'm going to do the same thing for the other types of grants, and then we'll come back and start looking at the actual grant application which you have there in front of you. First, the high level summary.
Thanks, George. Good afternoon, everybody. This may be a little bit redundant for those of you that were with us last week at the Playhouse, this first sort of high-level view, but I think it's important to go over this again and talk specifically about Helping Today and what Helping Today is all about. Essentially, Helping Today, as you see on the screen, is our grant-making program that supports current projects. So it's things that you have going on right now, and is in response to tangible needs. Generally speaking, the awards don't exceed $30,000, and they're 12-year awards. So these are for projects that are going to be completed within 12 years. Or, I'm sorry, 12 months. 12 years. You have 12 years to get these done. Take about 15 years, 12 years. These are the categories that Helping Today awards are granted in. Program enhancement, which is all about improving the quality of current programming. Program expansion, which is all about taking a good idea or a good program and making it a little bit larger, investing in making that program, the capacity of that program to do more. Communications and marketing is all basically focused on helping you tell your story. You know, we know how important it is for you folks to get out there and reach different types of audiences for different reasons. And the communication and marketing categories for that. Capital and facilities needs, this is a fairly popular category for organizations that need physical upgrades, improving and upgrading equipment, tools, and even office space. Technology needs, as you see, require a 50% match. And that's for upgrading devices, computer hardware, computer software, some network resources, things of that nature. Vehicle purchases, we see a number of these throughout the year, also require a 50% match and require a variety of bids to give us not necessarily the exact vehicle that you're planning to purchase, but a range, generally a range that it will cost to get the vehicle that you're looking for. And then great ideas. You know, we continue to support projects and programs that we may not have heard of before, that are out there. Obviously, we're interested in things that are that have some legitimacy and some rigor, some proof and outcomes that can be applied to your program and potentially programs that have done the same thing before. This is sort of the process. Each one of your organizations will call Rachel, and Rachel will set up a meeting with our team, which will definitely include Rachel and I, and it's sometimes George sits in with us. At that meeting, we talk about the specifics, and we talk about really how you can bring to the surface the importance of your idea, your program, what's unique about it, and you know, how your idea is meeting a current need. And we'll emphasize that significantly throughout the process, you know, obviously in the meeting, but then we want you to carry that forward in your application. That's certainly true of Helping Today and of all of the grants that I'm sure you folks are involved in, you know, trying to really emphasize the importance of this particular project and how it's going to help our community right now. You'll then be given a code by Rach and our team. You'll apply online, and once that application is completed and submitted to us, we go through our due diligence where we read through that application, look at your supporting documentation and everything that you have submitted to us. We'll maybe, in some cases, do some back and forth with you. We may even go on a site visit if it's appropriate. And you know, is something that can possibly support the application. We then review, and after that review is done, we sit down with our grants panel. And that's a community panel that's made up of leaders, folks that are involved in some of the same businesses or like businesses as yours. And we sit down and have a 2-3 hour conversation about your organizations and your applications. And there is certainly attention paid to each individual application. And then ultimately, because of the number of awards and the limited amount of money that we have, in some cases we talk about the collective group and decisions are made based on that. Last year, for example, we focused a lot on a lot of education and human service related apps. And obviously we don't have a trend yet this year, but I try to emphasize that because the collective does become important when we have 35 applicants and, X amount of dollars to cover that. When you've got $1 million of requests and $140,000 to give out, you've got to go through a number of avenues to sort of whittle down all these great ideas. We then review the decision with our Board of Trustees, and notifications and award letters are sent out after that. I think that's it for now. We'll get into the application and more specifics in a bit, but let George take Shaping Tomorrow.
Thanks, Pat. Just to give you some idea of the magnitude of this, we received about 150 grant applications last year, roughly. We had about $3 million worth of requests, and we had about $400,000 worth to give out. So you can see it's a very competitive process. It's not that most of the applications we get are good applications, and the projects are good projects. It's just a competitive thing. There's not enough dollars to fund every request that comes in. And that's why we have this multiple review process along the way. So it's not one person making that decision. It's the grants panel, it's the staff, and ultimately, it's our Board of Trustees.
It's also important, the whole idea, if you're coming and talking to us about a program, the concept of best practice, proving best practice is extremely important as we're evaluating these requests.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about primarily today, Helping Today, but let me give you the overview of the other types of grants. We also have Shaping Tomorrow grants. These are the grants that support multi-year evidence-based collaborative projects that are transformational and sustainable. We have a definition. Multiple year means up to 3 years. Evidence-based, if you're not familiar with Erie Vital Signs, I would encourage you to go on Erie Vital Signs website, look at the vital signs. This is an indicator project that tracks 8 different areas of community life, from economy, education, health, environment, and so on. Evidence-based collaborative projects. By collaboration, we mean multiple nonprofits that are working together to achieve shared outcomes. It's not letters of support. It's beyond that for Shaping Tomorrow grants. Transformational, here we're looking for, we used to say moving the needle in some way around, but this is what we mean by that. Projects with significant potential of generating substantial positive community change in one or more aspects. So if this is about the economy, how will this really make a difference in the economic issue and life of Erie County? That's what we mean by transformational. Sustainable, we're looking for projects that will go on beyond the grant period. It's a 3-year thing. We don't want you to have to close this thing up after 3 years. We want to be able to continue that. So what's your plan for that? And then we want these to be developed a lot more rigorously than we're expecting in Helping Today grants. This is where the logic model comes in, the theory of change comes in, but we would work with you on that if you reach that point. There's vital signs. Those are the topical areas on vital signs. Please check this out. It'll be helpful to you because there's a question about this on the Helping Today grant application as well, where you say, does your project relate to any of these, and if so, which one or ones? You'd want to know what's on the site. Okay, and it looks to me like we're at the point where, any questions about Shaping Tomorrow? It's a lot more involved. If you're interested in that, same process. Come and talk with us first, and then we'll go beyond that. All right, Rachel's going to pull up the grant application, and we're going to walk through the grant application now.
I guess the best place to start is, where do I find the application? And you can go right onto our website, www.eriecommunityfoundation.org. And then you will go under for grant seekers and click apply for a grant. You'll get this page, and again, where it says apply for a grant, you will apply for a grant. If you have not registered with us on this website, your organization hasn't registered with us, you'll need to create a new account. And it's just going to ask you for just basic information, your name, tax ID number, address, contact person, all the easy stuff that you should know the answers to pretty quick. Once you get that in there, you'll be saved in the system. You should note that once you enter this information, you're not able to change it on your own. You have to contact us. I don't know why. But, it's happened. If you move, if you get a new phone number, just give us a call and we'll make the change. And you also can have multiple contact people within your organization. But you should really just have one login ID for everybody. It just makes it a lot easier.
So let me ask, if you have one login for everybody, 2 or 3 people could go and access this information, but they would use the same login?
The same information.
Whatever you create?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is what your page will look like when you open it up. It's going to show your dashboard that will show any grants that your organization has applied for in the past. As you can see down at the bottom, it was 2012, I think. So what you will do if you're applying for a new grant is you will hit apply. It's going to tell you to click on a link at the bottom of the page, and you'll see there's no link there, and that's because you will need the secret access code. I'm afraid to type it in because I'm afraid I might give it away. But what will happen is I will type it in, I'll hit enter, and then at the bottom a link will pop up and say, helping today, cycle 1, 2015, and then you'll click on it. It'll take you to the application, which I can now pull up. Is there any questions about any of that? Creating an organization, logging in? If something comes up when you're trying to do it and you forgot your password or something like that, just give us a call and we're able to reset it. And like I said, we can make any changes to the organizational information if you need it. So then once you click on the magical link, this is what pops up.
And you have these now?
And you have a copy of it.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. So there's the name of the project. Note the character limits on these things. They're pretty generous, but character is not the same thing as words, is that? All right. Project description. This is what we use for our board. When we get everything to our board, we give them a summary of what it is. We will tend to use your summary. So, make sure that, you kind of spell it out briefly, but in a way that, give them the flavor of what we're talking about there. So, the problem or the need that your project addresses. Now, you got to be careful about this thing. You may need a new computer system, and that's one thing. And that's fine, but try to tie this into what's going on in the community, not just what's going on in your organization. You're looking for a computer system because we're meeting this need in the community. So it's not just about your need, but you're an agent that's doing good work in the community. So try to tie that in if you possibly can. Now, it may not always work. But even if you're coming for a car, a vehicle, why do you need a vehicle? Well, we need a vehicle. Well, why do you need a vehicle? What's the need? Because our organization does these kind of community events, and if we have a car, we don't have to rent a car each time, which is going to save us money, and we're going to be able to do more with the clients that we're working with. Justify your need. Evidence. You're gonna do an after-school program for kids. What evidence is there that there's a need for an after-school program for kids that's not the same thing as what 45 other organizations are already doing for kids after school? Okay, what's the need you're addressing? What's your slice of the pie here? How are you going to do it? How are you going to, here's your plan to achieve your objectives. What are the desired outcomes? If all of this works, how's the world going to change? What's the outcome from all of that? What do you hope to accomplish? And what's the timeline? Beginning in. It's going to begin in March of this year, and it's going to end February next year. So you have 5,000 characters to do that. So that should be enough space for you to summarize in a nice package what you're doing with this grant. All right? Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're doing something that may or may not be done in a year, but it'll continue on and on and on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, it'll help us get through one part of a project, but the project's bigger than a year. That's okay?
You need to describe what you're going to do within the year, so that it's not just, what's going to be the outcome you're looking for at the end of the 12-month period, even though this is a continuing project.
Okay.
Within the 12 months, you're going to be able to accomplish this much. If it's a multi-year project, you might want to consider looking at the shaping process. Because then you got a big one, you could describe the first year we're going to do this, the second year we're going to build on that in this way, the third year we're going to do this. Okay, so you're total cost, amount requested from the foundation. Here's what Pat was talking about, the type of funding requests. We fund projects that relate to these kinds of things. You tell us, is this expansion of a program, it's an enhancement of a current project, capital funds, or whatever?
We normally will help you choose that category in our pre-op meetings as well. So you won't be guessing at that. We'll have discussed it and unless something changes, you'll already know when you leave our pre-op meeting what category you're in.
Other, I don't know. You got to put that in anyway in case there's something else that you got a really creative idea and it doesn't fit anywhere else. Fine. Check other, but then tell us what it is. All right, let's move on then. Number of people served. Great program, it serves 14 people. Competitive process, chances are, maybe not. Even though it's a wonderful idea.
They have 12 years though.
That's true. Yeah, one person a year.
For 12 years.
Yes.
Just on your comment though,
Yes,
I mean, my program's small, so most of the time it would affect 30 people.
That's all right.
Because of it's small, it's less dense.
No, not necessarily. Depends on the type of program it is and the need for the program.
Okay.
And is it something that is being duplicated? Are you doing pretty much the same thing other people are doing? You're just you're redundant there. That would be an issue. But no, it doesn't have to. We're not looking for hundreds of thousands of people on these things. But we would like to know the number of people served. Here's this Erie Vital Signs issue. Now, if you are doing a Shaping Tomorrow grant, we really push you into a lot of evidence around Shaping Tomorrow. If you are doing a Helping Today grant, you don't have to worry a lot about that. If there's a tie-in, it's great. If there's not a tie-in, there's no demerits for that. That's okay. Don't worry about it. But if there is a tie-in, then check it. You don't get done either way, and you don't get really rewarded a whole lot. But it's just something, when we track our grants, we like to know how many grants are we making that relate to the economy or to whatever. Some of them are the big grants, Shaping Tomorrow, and some are smaller grants. That's all we're looking for here. Not to worry. For some reason or other, the software does not have a place where you can put the date in. And so if we're looking at this 6 months later, we're not exactly sure when you submitted this thing. So that's the reason we created this question. Please go through this. Oh, I should also say, go through this, and the day that you hit submit, put the date on there so we know when it came in. Because if we go into it to look at it 3 times, it's going to default to that date, and we're not going to know when the original date was. Now, I should say, this, once you go online and start to work on this, this will remain active until you hit submit. You don't have to worry about it going away. So you can work on this over 3 weeks or 4 months. It's going to remain whatever you put in there, and it's going to stay where it is. Nobody's going to change it or touch it until you go back in and hit submit. Once you hit submit, then you can't get back to it again. But it'll remain there for you as long as you need it to be. So if you decide, you want to submit this time, and something comes up, you don't have all the information, it's not quite ready, that can sit there until the next cycle, and then you can go back to it again and pick it up again. Okay, now, here's this organizational information that we talked about. remember, if you have a fiscal sponsor, this part is going to relate to your fiscal sponsor, not to your project. That's why if a fiscal sponsor is submitting this application, the organizational information section must relate to the fiscal sponsor. Okay. Otherwise, it's your information. Okay, there's the organizational history. The critical thing here is your capacity for doing this. We want to know the name of your organization history. But why do you tell us about your capacity to do this. You're gonna say, we're gonna do this really wonderful thing. Our board is gonna say, can they really pull it off? It's a great idea, but do they have the capacity to do it? Or is it really out here, but when it comes right down to it, they're gonna have a hard time delivering on that. So we do want, tell us about your organization, your history, but also don't forget this part, your capacity for carrying it out. That's important. They're going to ask us those questions.
Relate your organizational history to the project. Why does it make sense that you're going to award this in relationship to your project and your organization?
Annual financial summary. Can you click on that? Will that come up? Let's see if we can show you what this looks like.
Excuse me,
Yeah. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry.
what if you don't have any history with your organization?
You have no history. You just formed?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
That's
Tell
your
us.
history.
Tell us.
You were
Yeah,
formed
we
for
were-
a reason.
Oh,
Yeah.
You were formed for a
That's
reason, and you're assuming that your reason is in response to community need. That really becomes your history.
Okay, now this is annual summary statistics. When you get to that question, you click on it, and this is what you're going to see. Now, this is the annual summary statistics for the organization over the last 2 or 3 years. Now, if your fiscal year is June to May, that's okay. It doesn't have to be January to December. You just use the last 2 or 3 years and give us the summary information. Revenue, annual expenses, annual budget, annual reserves, full number of employees, blah, 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 across the board. Okay? We just want the summary here. We don't need to have detailed information. We're not asking for audited financial statements or whatever. Just give us the summary information. Yes, ma'am.
We are part of a much larger organization. However, we're office specific, and I'm specifically looking for a project that we have going on here. So my budget, what I run that, because this is a satellite office, so am I going to give you my numbers for the corporate that we're off of satellite?
You're going to give us the corporate information here,
Okay.
and then when we get to the project part of the thing, then you're going to talk about your office.
Okay.
So this is the, if this were the United Way or whatever, we would be asking for the, United Way International information, which kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just kind of the way it is. Yes, ma'am?
I'm sorry, I was just moving my.
Oh, you're just waving. You can wave at me anytime, that's fine. Yes, sir. Were you waving at me as well? Go ahead.
Either one. If the project is executed exclusively by a department within the organization, you're still looking for the organization
Yes,
budget.
and this portion of the application, we're looking for the organizational information. In a minute, when we get to the project part, we'll look for your department or your county or whatever it is, your office. Okay, any questions on this? This sometimes can be a little confusing. I just want to make sure you understand what we're looking for here. Just give us the totals. We don't want all the details. All right, we're going back to the... So there's the annual financial summary. That's just what we looked at. Current fiscal year budget, again, of the organization now, because we're going to get to a point where you're going to tell us the budget for your project. This is your organization's annual budget. Fiscal year budget, diversity funding. Demonstrate the diversity of your organization's funding sources by breaking down the, using the percent. All we're looking here is, here's the budget. Let's say your budget is $100, and the organization's budget's $100. 50% of that comes from foundation grants. 25% comes from a contract that you have with the county, and the other 25% is individual donations or fundraisers or something like that. So give us the total, and then just break down the percentages. That's all we want. We want to make sure that you're diversified, your organization is diversified enough that you're going to be able to continue this project. Because if you suddenly lose 90% of your funding, oops, No, this is going to be an issue. Okay. There, they've got some examples. All right. Organizational chart. Please upload your organizational chart or comparable personnel narrative staff structure. We're just looking at, for the organization, are you a one-person shop? You know, is the organization at one, are you the executive director, the janitor, fundraiser, you know, and everything else? That's okay. That's perfectly okay. Lots of nonprofits are that way. We give grants that way, that's no problem. But if you have a larger, we just want to know what how is your organization staffed? So if you have a formal organization chart, upload it. If you just want to describe it, describe it. Not a big deal. You shouldn't stress on it. Just we'd like to know, because it's a capacity issue, some of this stuff. If you're undertaking a big project and you are the sole person, then we're going to have some questions. We will ask you some questions. But how can you do all that at the same time? Okay.
Sorry.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that new from last year?
That's a new one.
Yeah, I don't remember doing that last year.
That's a new one.
Okay, that's
Yep,
new.
yep.
Okay, thank you.
We try to do that just to throw you off. So you
I
can-
don't remember
Okay.
doing that.
Yeah. And please don't make it, it's not a big, not to worry about that. We'll talk with you about this in our pre-app meeting, and if there's issues, you can bring them up then. Board trustee list, just simply upload that for us. And then the other organizational documents. Now, the key word here is organizational documents. So if your organization produces an annual report, you could upload that. If you have quarterly newsletters, you could upload that. But these supporting documents relate to the organization, not to your project. You're going to get to the point where you're going to be able to upload documents that support your project, describe your project. This, if you think, not required, okay, not required. Any that you would like the board to consider. If they don't know who you are, they may not understand what you're doing, and if you can help them understand what your organization's all about, wonderful, put it in there. If they already know you've gotten grants from us annually for the last 15 years, it may not be quite necessary for you to, inundate us with a lot of stuff. But if you want the board to consider something that you think it will be valid for them as they're looking at your organization, you have the opportunity to do it right there. Okay, now we come to the project narrative. Now, okay, your fiscal sponsor has filled in the rest, what we just talked about, for you, about your organization. Now we come to the part of the application that deals just with the project you're asking money for. Okay, so this is the project narrative. All right. State your organization's mission and how this project advances your mission. Okay, it's sometimes a nonprofit could see a potential revenue source over here and want to go after it, and it would have very little to do with their mission. And so, that issue of mission drift, but I'm chasing the money over here. What we're looking for here is your mission. And how does this project advance your mission? My mission is to care for, wounded birds. And this is a thing where I go out and, shoot birds. No, I go out and, I take care of wounded birds, all right? So that's the mission statement and how the project advances this. Vehicle technology match funding, all right? We said this is 50%. Match for your thing. Tell us where you're going to get the match. Now, you may already have it in reserves. You may have a commitment from 3 other foundations for a certain amount of money. Whatever. We need to know what the match is, and here's where you can do that, and you can also submit competitive bids. If you go out to somebody and you say to them, I'm going to go to the Erie Community Foundation for money for this, they're liable to set the price at a high point because they think they're going to get the money through the foundation, and so what the heck for you, it doesn't matter. So we want to make sure that you have some competitive, you've done a little bit of shopping, so you can say, here's the range. This is why we're asking for this much. We've gone out, we've got some bids. They don't need to be formal bids. As Pat said, if it's a vehicle kind of a situation, you're not going to be, if you're looking for a used van for your organization, you can't say the sticker price on this used van is $23,000 for $14, because you're not going to get this money for 6 weeks or something like that, and by that time the van's going to be sold. So what's the range for a used van? That's what we're looking for. Go to a couple of dealers, get that, and tell us. That's all.
We're looking for like an up to number. We'll fund up to this point, and, you know, you're looking then, once you're awarded that money for a specific.
Okay, makes sense. Uniqueness. What is new, unique, or innovative about your idea, this project? How does it differ from the traditional approach to the same thing? Is it the same thing everybody does? And are there 3 other people doing it in town? You know, what's different? What's unique about this approach?
The uniqueness of your approach, the uniqueness of the people that you're serving.
What's unique about your thing that's not already done by 4 other organizations? Is there something, again, this is not something that you have to, you don't have to have the most innovative approach. But if there's something unique about your thing, then tell us.
Because on the flip side of innovation, sorry.
Yeah, please.
On the flip side of innovation is evidence-based, you know, so this is this is a great opportunity for you to talk about, for those of you that are using an evidence-based program, it's a great opportunity to talk about, you know, why this evidence has led you to this approach, and what about that evidence? You know, what is it showing? What is it telling you? You know, it's always a great idea to cite that type of literature, and then talk about how you're doing the same thing. And we can make the conclusion that if you have success in one, there's potential for success in this one.
I'm just, you definitely have to be unique. Let's just say, use your example of after school. It might be we just need more programs for after school.
That's fine.
We might not be,
Absolutely.
okay, you just
fine.
Yeah.
like drug and alcohol.
It's needed.
Yes.
We're defining need in all of this. I mean, it's really coming down to need and capacity. That's really.
Yeah, but what happens with this is our panel, we've got this 12 to 15 member panel, they go in and they read all these things, and then they score them on a basis of 1 to 5 for each question. So the one who is particularly unique, innovative, may get a 5, you may get a 3 on that. It doesn't throw you out at all. Okay. Collaboration, are you collaborating with anybody on this? Is this your organization only working this, or are there others that are working with you in this? Collaboration is not required, but it's certainly something you want to know about. And if they are collaborating, what are they doing to collaborate? And so tell us the names of the other organizations that if you are working with another organization, tell us, and tell us the role they're going to play in that. Not required, but it can be. Yes, sir.
When you say it's not required on that point system, 1 through 5, so if we are collaborating and we get 4 perhaps out of that, and someone else isn't collaborating at all, they would get a 0 for that. So it would help you out.
It would help you out, but it doesn't mean that that the person who doesn't have a collaborative project is going to be refused funding. What happens is we put these all together in order. They'll tabulate the scores. They'll be in order, and then we sit around for a morning and we go through every single application individually and talk about it. And the result of that usually is that those things get renumbered. They get reordered. Even though this is a high number project, for reasons that the panel thinks about, this is one that really needs to be funded, and that'll go up to the top. But it's just a way for us to get to weight some of the projects we're in, but it's not a knockout if you have a 1 on something at all. Yes, ma'am?
George, I always struggle with that word project, because let me just sort of give you an example, and maybe other people in the room sort of have that too. I work at the neighborhood art house, the art house, okay? And let's say that my request would be, and it's not going to be, but let's say it's going to be that we want to expand our music program, and I'm looking for funds to add 12 more violins and cases and music sheets and all that. Pretty simple.
Right.
Okay. When collaborating, partnering with any other organization on this project, we look at the art house as a project, sort of, it's an after-school program. And yes, we collaborate with the school district, we partner with them to get the children over to our art house for the after-school program, but no, they're not partnering with us on this specific project that I'm asking ECF to fund us for this music program.
I understand, yeah.
Does anybody else have that? I mean, am I just not clear? I mean, so, in answering something like that,
I think you could talk about the program that you have overall.
the
and
whole
The whole
program,
program that you have. and
the
then-
after-school program.
Right, and then describe the activity that you're seeking funding for within that larger
In it.
program.
Okay,
Right.
Okay.
It may not be a discrete project that is different from everything else you're doing. It may be a part of the overall activity or program of the art house.
Mhm.
And here's one part of that that has a beginning and an ending. We want to buy the violins. We want to buy them this year, and we want to use them for these purposes. And if we do that, here's the outcome that we think we'll get from all that.
okay,
Okay, does that help a little bit? So don't get hung up on the word project. It can
Okay.
be activity, it can be program, you decide whatever it is. But it needs to have something that has a beginning and an ending. I mean, the ending may be, once it's in place, it's going to continue. But you're going to buy something and expand your existing activities to include this, and that's what you're proposing to do here. Doesn't have to be any more than that. Is that okay? You don't look convinced.
yeah, it is, and if I get mixed up, I'll call Rachel. But,
Yes.
yeah, I know, I do this on other grants as well, trying to
Yeah.
state my case, project, program.
Yeah, we would use those terms interchangeably. We're not going to
Okay.
hold you to a discrete project. All right, who's leading the charge here? Who's the person that's responsible for it? It may be you. You're a sole person shop, it may be you, or you may have another person who's working on it, or you may have a consultant who's working on it, or whatever. Who's working on it? Who's leading it? If there are other people, if it's a team, you've got 3 people working on this, then list it. Don't worry about it. If it's you and that's it, that's okay. Project team, community engagement. Here's another one that may or may not apply. If this is a community-related project, you may have talked with other community partners about this. If you have, you're going to start an anti-violence program in the neighborhood. And this is going to be the aspect of your anti-violence program in the neighborhood. Have you talked to the neighborhood watch group? That's probably something we want to know. So if there's an element where community engagement is applicable, then talk about it. If you're buying a car, for heaven's sakes, community engagement probably doesn't apply for that one, and we're not going to worry about that. Now, budget. Let's talk about budget. And Rachel will try to... This is one we've tried to simplify and make as easy as possible, but there's always questions on it. So let me just walk through the budget with you. When you get to that point, you click on it, this is what you're going to see. A blank. No, there we go. Now, remember, this is the project this is the budget that relates to the project you're working on, not the organization. We're not talking about the entire, $150,000 of the organization. We're talking about the $10,000 you're asking for. What's the budget for the $10,000 you want? Thank you. All right, let's go ahead up to the top for just a second. Yeah, up here. The name of your organization, the project period, it starts, March the 1st and it goes through December 31st or whatever it is. The total project and the amount requested. Okay, just put that in there because this is a separate sheet of paper and sometimes it could get lost or whatever. And this we want to make sure that you're giving us stuff that relates to this activity that you're asking funding for, not everybody in the world. Okay. Now, like any kind of a budget, what we want to do is to make sure it balances the income, balances the expenditures for your project. So do that. Now, okay, you've got 2 sides. You have revenue and expenses. So look at the revenue side first, and there are a number of columns here. Committed, pending, total, line description. It says, please provide details for each line item in your budget. Committed funds. All right. The first one is committed funds. you have categories, let's go over to the left for just a second.
Can you shrink that?
I can, I just didn't want to make it so small that,
That's okay. Let's start here. There are various categories, line items that could relate to your revenue sources. You know, you're going to have money from the foundation you're asking for. Maybe you have money from other foundations that are going to be put to this use. Maybe you have a government contract, part of which is going to go to this activity. You might have corporate support, you know, your insurance is giving you $500 toward this project, that's a corporate support. Individuals, you may have individual donors who are going to give you money for this. You may earn income, you may be doing fundraisers or something like that, that could be part of it. But remember, these are things that relate to the project you're asking for, not to the whole thing. So it may be you're going to take a portion of your money from ticket sales and commit it to this. That's fine, that's earned income. That'd be okay. Membership income, in kind. In kind is a form of income. Let's say your organization has volunteers. They're going to help with this project. And there's going to be 2 volunteers. They're going to come for an hour a week for 8 weeks or something like that. Okay. Then you estimate, if you were going to pay these people, how much would you pay them per hour? You can pick a number. I mean, I make a reasonable number, but you pick a number, multiply that out, and that's your earning. That's your in-kind support. So in-kind support is a way for you to show you've got some skin in the game too, in addition to the dollars. You can do that. There's the match, and if there's something else that we haven't covered, other. Now, it's important to know that you do not have to use all these categories. There may be only one category, there may be 3, or there may be something else that we haven't thought of you can put in there. So don't worry about that. You can delete these or just not use them. That's okay. That's most of the time, the applications that come in do not have all these filled in. They'll have 2 or 3 and that's it. But we try to list as many as possible for you. You do not have to use them all. But
You have to use it. I mean, let's say you wanted $5,000, I don't know, to buy books.
mhm,
And you don't have, and you're asking your community foundation for the 5,000.
mhm.
Can you just put that there?
You can. But you put over here in pending,
That
not
would
in
be-
committed. Yeah.
Okay.
You put $5,000 here for pending, because you're going to put a grant application for $5,000 from us, and that's all the money that's going to be needed for this project. There's no other money going to be used for this project. And over here, under the line item description, so you're going to put $5,000 here from ECF, and over here, you're going to put grant from ECF, so we know what that is. Okay? So committed are the monies that you already have in hand. You can't put the grant that you're asking from us in hand because you're just asking for it. You're asking for it as well. You're asking money for it. The committed dollars, but you have a savings account and you're going to take $2,000 out of that savings account, it is committed. You already have that money. It's available to you. It's in hand. So committed, pending, and this should total whatever the money is from other foundations. If you've asked, let's say you've asked for Erie Insurance Foundation for money, and that's also pending, and you have $1,000 from another foundation. So there's $1,000 there, there's $2,000 there, the total of that is $3,000. And over here, you're going to write in tiny little letters, you're going to say, got $1,000 already from this, or it's already in hand, and we're asking for these. This over here.
Are your
Okay.
in-kind donations permitted to be part of your required 50% match for items where it's required?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We want actual dollars, because your in-kind donations would be sweat equity mostly. And that wouldn't be the 50% dollar match against the $20,000 ban, unless you're building it. Okay. All right, so there you go. So there's the revenue side.
George, under individuals, you have to put their name or can
No,
you
no,
be
no, no,
anonymous?
no. You can put,
Okay.
yeah, 14 donors.
Pardon me?
14 donors.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay.
We do not need to have that kind of.
And what about other foundations? Like, you want to know?
We
what
want to
other
know what the other
foundations
foundations
are
are.
helping out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, okay, now, so that's going to come up to a total. So your income totals $100. Now your revenue needs to total $100. Now there's some columns here as well. Note again, we have a bunch of line items here that could be used, but they don't have to be used. This is your budget. So what's your budget for the project you're asking for? Does your budget include salaries? If so, that's a line you would use. Does your budget include administrative overhead? We allow that. You put that in there. Does your budget include postage and marketing or something like that? So whatever your budget includes for the project you're asking for, you create the categories of your budget. Use these if you want to, don't use them if you don't want to. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of the overhead, do you have a cap on that? What do you cap?
20%.
20%?
That's a rough thing. If you came in with 22 or 3, I don't think anybody's going to scream at you. But we try to get it around that. Right, yes, ma'am.
Do you use the average 25% for fringe?
Well, that would be the administrative overhead you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about personnel wages,
Tax and fringe? I mean, benefits?
Oh, benefits? Yeah, that'd be about right. Yeah, 25. Okay, now, this first column here, or I guess the second column here, this is ECF portion. Remember, now you've asked for $10,000 from Erie Community Foundation. Where are you going to use that money? So all you got to do here, and this is just pretty much of a guessing game, I would think, if I were in your position. I would say I'm going to get $10,000 from the foundation. I'm going to divide that up around this way. I may be going to use it all for the purchase of the vehicle. And that would be fine. Be $10,000 there. I need $10,000. I'm going to match with $10,000, so that would go in there. You decide how you're going to divide it up. But what you need to do is divide up the amount of money you're asking for us in this column, from us in this column. And you can make that up, or you can actually have your accountant work on that carefully. And that's fine too. All right. So, your budget is $20,000. You're asking for 10 from us. Here's the 10. So you got $10,000 left, right? You got 10 from us. Your budget's 20. You're going to divide the 10 up here from ECF. You're going to divide the other 10 up in here. Okay. You divide it just so it comes out 0, 0, or 10,000 and 10,000. So that's okay. And then here you can provide the explanation over here. Right? 10, 10, and that's it. Any questions about the budget stuff? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. Since we may have, and most of us will have different applications out to different organizations, like United Way has a funding cycle now and all that.
Right.
So they go under the pending.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's okay, know that this is pending, we don't even know whether this is coming in
Right,
yet.
right.
But you just want to see,
I want to see who you're asking it
Okay.
of, from whom are you asking? And then over here you might say, notification date, March. So we know this is pending. How long is it pending? Our stuff is going to be available to you, in this cycle, our stuff is going to be available to you by the middle of March. Our application date is February 2. The notification date, I think, is March 26. So if you are not going to hear from this foundation you're asking until October, the chances are that we're probably going to hold that until you get this other in hand. We're not going to give you, if you have more than half or whatever of your income out there, we're probably not going to release our income until this other stuff comes. Because what happens if you don't get that grant?
Well, and
Then
I
we have to
guess
go back to the
that's-
drawing board.
well, and is there any place on this, in the application to say, because, if you don't get some of the money you're asking, most of us know how we will handle that. Is there any place on the
Yes.
application to say, this is, if not all this funding, this is how we will scale back, and we could still use
Right.
help, because this is what we would,
Right.
how we would scale it back?
Well, on the application question that says other funding sources, you want to put in there, we have an application in United Way for X, we'll hear this sum, and if we don't receive the dollars, this is what we're going to do.
Okay.
But you want to indicate here on the line description when those, or up in revenue side, on how, when is the application, when are you going to know about the disposition of the grant you sent to X Foundation? Okay, let's go back to the questions. We're almost done. Been patient. Okay, geographic area served. This is a drop down, right? This is a drop down?
Not anymore, just
Okay.
because it
Okay,
wasn't
all
very
right.
inclusive.
No drop down. Inner city Erie, Corey, the entire Erie County, where, just tell us the geography of where. This is a neighborhood grant, it's going to be used in Little Italy, that's fine, just tell us where you're going to use it. Your target population are who? Yes, sir.
The geographic area served, is it a negative if you go outside of Erie County?
Your ships can go anywhere that you want to send them. No, that's not a negative. But remember, the service is to Erie County mostly. If you're creating a grant that's going to serve Ashtabula primarily, chances are that that would not be eligible.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's no reason why your activity, if it makes sense, is going to go out other places, particularly in your situation. Target population, who's the target population? Third graders in Wayne School. Here's the, if you have selected one of these, you're right assignments here. Here's the where you can say how this applies. If you didn't select it, skip the question. If you did select it, give us some information. Why do you think this applies to this one? You don't need to go on, look, we have 2,000, we have 1,000 up there. There's not a lot of words, so you don't worry too much about filling that in. Evaluation, here, we're not looking for a formal logic model where you have assumptions and you have short and medium-term objectives and impacts on it. We're looking for you to describe how you're going to know whether you did it or not. Describe how you evaluate this project, or better, what will success look like? This is not, we had 14 sessions with the third graders. And if we have 14 sessions, that's how we're going to evaluate it. How are you going to evaluate whether this made any difference with the 14 third graders that were in the program? So how will you know whether you succeeded to do what you want to do with this project? All right? Sustainability. Here's this question that somebody asked about something continues beyond this thing. Can your project's goals be accomplished within the grant period? You might say to us, well, we're starting a new project here. At the end of this period, grant period, the world is not going to come to an end. We're going to continue this thing beyond that. But by the end of the grant period, we're going to do this, and after that, we're going to be continuing. We're going to do other stuff as well. All right. But what we're looking for here is, will the project stop at the end of the grant period? That's what we don't want to happen. You guys have a good idea about what you want to do. Foundation says, yes, it's a great idea what you're going to do. At the end of the 12-month period, the whole thing has to stop. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, if it really is successful the way you said it, how will you continue beyond the end of the grant period? Now, it may be that you're going to continue to seek grant funding. It may be that you're going to have, by that time, you think you'll recruit your 14 new donors who are going to help underwrite the program. But how will it go on beyond the 12 months of this grant period? That's really, just describe that for us.
Many times if you're trying to get your program up and running, ultimately what you're trying to do is merge with another funding stream, so maybe that's your sustainability plan. That, we're trying to pilot this is a great idea, on the other end is a funding stream, and that's what we're trying to go after. So there's how you address sustainability in that case.
And that's a big deal for our board. Sustainability is something they're really interested in. All right, sustainability. This is something for you to tell us. You're looking for the foundation to give you some money. Wonderful. You got a great project. You deserve the money. We'll do everything we can to get you prepared, to have a good presentation to the board. We hope that they agree. Are there other ways that the foundation can help you beyond just the grants? That this may be helping you with this project. It may be helping your organization as well. How can we help you? Is it with talking to other funders about what you're doing, giving them good information about how great your organization is? Is it public policy related? You know, our big stunning block, are this, the way the laws are written in Erie County. We can't do what needs to be done to meet a need. We could use your help in getting some of the laws changed. So what are some, if there are, this is not a requirement. You don't have to put anything in there. But if there's something you want to tell us about how we can help you, we want to know that because we'd like to try to do that. So fill that in and we'll do what we can. Yes, ma'am?
So is my assumption that there's no dollar amount?
There's no dollar amount.
There is.
Yeah, right. Right. But we put in here convening, promoting collaboration, public policy analysis, advocacy, research, knowledge sharing. There are other ways. And again, you do not need to fill that in. That's just an option for you. If there's something you want us to know, please tell us. Be more open, be more accessible. That's okay too. Don't worry, we will not penalize you if you say something. The foundation should do more of this than they're doing right now. That's okay. We'd like to know that. Our board wants to know. Now here's where you can put additional stuff that relates to the project. Project supporting documents. Remember the first part of this was organizational supporting documents, your annual report or your newsletters. This is where you're going to put in stuff that relates to your project or the activity that you're seeking funding for. So anything here you can upload there. Now there is a character limit of 2,000 and a file size limit of 2 megabytes. And then there's this business of, Rachel, can you tell them how they should do that? Because I don't understand.
So sometimes you may have maybe multiple letters of support that you want to share for your project. Because when you upload, it'll only allow you to upload one document, period. So you'll either have to take those letters or if they're bids maybe for a project, you'll combine them into one PDF if you can. You can scan them into one PDF, then upload them as one document. You can also use this fax to file link here. It takes you to an outside web page that's associated with our grant software. And it'll ask you to fax the documents to this number, and then the company will put them together into a nice little package and attach them to your application. If you're not comfortable with that, you can always just call me or email them to me, and I will put them together. If you're on a deadline and you've got a lot to do, send them to me and just say, hey, attach all these documents. And I will do that, and I'll send you a confirmation that lets you know that I did that.
You don't have to do a lot of these, but if there are some that you think support and make your case, then by all means attach them. Because the board will look through these individually. And so you've got 14 letters of support from some really important organizations that understand what you're doing. And they put them in there, great. What we're not looking for are the template kind of letters of support that we get from the city, the school district, other things, where essentially it's just erase and insert name. And because we see the same letter of support from the same organizations all the time, endorsing this project, and it's the same letter. Well, how much do they really know about what you're doing? So if you can't get one that really talks to your thing, it's probably not, you can submit those, but it's not going to get you too far. Signatures. Now, remember here, the signatures apply to who is the nonprofit that's submitting this. So if you're using a fiscal sponsor, the signatures are the signatures of the fiscal sponsor, not you. And there are a couple different ones. There's the executive of the organization. So here's the executive of your fiscal sponsor, or your executive. Could be called president of the organization, executive director, whoever that is. That there. The electronic signature of the applying organization. Move on down. Here's the board chair. We put this in because sometimes real eager nonprofit executives will submit something and their board doesn't even know they've submitted it. We kind of like to know that the board has endorsed this too. So that's the reason for that in there. And that's it.
So do they just, you give them the login information, they go in?
Yeah, and you can submit.
And sign it?
Yeah, do we actually have signatures written on a line, or we just actually have the name typed in there? That's okay. We're not going to come and check on that, but you said it, and we're going to take your word for it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about the grant application itself? Okay, there's two other things that I want to, yes, Mary?
Can you talk about the event scholarship, that you can apply for?
I can't. Let me do that in just a second now.
Sure.
I wanted to talk about the deadlines, and I want to talk about the project evaluation reports, so you know about that. You have before you a couple documents. One is the grant guidelines. So if you just pull out for just a quick second, and if you look on the left-hand column, or that little light blue box in the middle of the page, you're going to see there the deadline. There are 4 cycles this year. You need to have your pre-app meeting prior to the, obviously, the submission thing. We'll give you the code, and then you'll submit it by one of those dates. But you can submit any one of those cycles. And then we'll go through the process we talked about. It'll go to the committee will go online, they'll score them, they'll read them, we'll get together, we'll talk about it, they'll make a recommendation to the board will meet, they'll debate all this, they'll make their decisions. Once the decision is made, 2 things will happen. One is we'll pick up the phone the day afterwards and we'll call you, and we'll tell you what happened. Funding, partial funding, decline. And we'll give you, as best we can, the rationale for whatever it is. So what they tell us is what we'll tell you. So you'll get that. Then in addition to that, you'll get a letter from us, a formal grant letter that says, you know, you got this grant, and you need to sign that and tell us when you want the funds and send it back to us. We can't release the funds until you sign the grant agreement letter. And in the grant agreement letter, you'll sign it, but you'll also say, we want the funds when, whenever. Some organizations are ready to go in their project now, we want the funds now. Some organizations are completing some planning, and in 3 months we want the money. That's fine. Just tell us when it is, and you'll get the check. If you're partially funded, Pat, partially funded Wishbook. Just tell them about Wishbook for a second.
Wishbook is an online resource of ours that we're developing with our donors. And it gives you an opportunity to use your resources as well as ours to fully fund those applications that we didn't fully fund. So if our committee says, you applied for $500 and we gave us $250, we'll post your logo on our Wishbook webpage. Talk to our donors. We're trying to develop this resource so that we can go right to our donors and say, hey, you expressed an interest in educational programs and mentoring programs for kids K through 5. And we can contact our donors and say, hey, we've got one, we didn't fully fund it, but it might be something that you'd be interested in. But it also gives you an opportunity to go to your resources and say, hey, we've got, we were partially funded by the Area Community Foundation for our XYZ program. They gave us $5,000, we need 5 more. Would you be interested in looking in on this, maybe a board member or donor or someone like that? So it's just an opportunity to kind of spread the impact of the money that we're able to give out and the resources that you have.
Now, the final thing I wanted to just mention on the Helping Today thing, and that's the evaluation reports. After you get your grant, we're going to ask you, in the grant application, there'll be a date when you have a evaluation report due. And there are 2 due for the 12-month grants. One's a 6-month one, and it's just simply a progress report. It's short. You'll get an electronic reminder for that. The system will automatically generate a reminder. You have a evaluation 6-month report due on a certain date, so you'll be reminded about that. There's a form that you go online, you'll fill out, and get it. It's simply a progress report. What we want to avoid here is if something happened and you had to take a dramatic left-hand turn and you're not able to do what you said you were going to do, we understand that happens, but we'd like to know about that before 12 months are up, and then you come to us and say, oh, by the way, Wayne School was closed, and so we used the money for a retreat in the Bahamas. And you've already done that. So tell us halfway through.
Smart as that may be.
Yes, right, yes. You're thinking
I'm thinking about
ideas.
going to Bahamas.
Yes. Good. So there's 2 reports, 6-month summary report, just a little update, and a final report in 12 months. And it's 12 months after you get the money. It's not after the board votes, because you may have said to us, I don't need the money for 6 months. So your 6 months would start after you get the money. Okay? So that's the reporting stuff. Before we move on to the couple other applications, are there other questions about the Helping Today process, applications, what you need to do or when? Yes,
I have one more question. Where it says here, eligible nonprofits may apply one time per calendar year through each of our Helping Today, Shaping Tomorrow, and Urgent Requests. That means a nonprofit could ask for each one of those, so you could make 3 requests,
You could.
as well as an event sponsorship, so even 4 in a year you could.
You could.
Okay.
You could. You just can't come back for the same Helping Today.
Right.
Because we have a pool of dollars for each of these, and so you get one shot at that pool of dollars, but there's another pool for this type and another pool for that type.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so our organization, we received the Helping Today grant, and we know that we can't apply for any other grants for 1 year.
For Helping Today.
Now, does that also, are we able to apply for event sponsorship though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Different pool.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, when you leave here, there will be another question comes to mind. That's okay. Please just call Rachel or Pat or me. Call us at the foundation number, ask for us, ask for one of us, and we'll be glad to help. That's perfectly fine, not to worry about that. When you call, set up a meeting, we'll be there to walk you through this again and answer any specific questions you have about your activity or your program or your project. We'll take care of that then.
If you have questions about applying for the grant, the actual physical on the website, that's Rach. If you have questions about content, that's me.
Okay. Now, Marianne's question about the event sponsorship. We also got an event sponsorship thing there. Look at the deadline on that thing. It's February 20th. What we're trying to do is we have a limited amount of money for sponsorships. So you're the Erie County Fair, and you want us to sponsor part of the fair or whatever it is. We'd like to know that you're going to be coming into us for the event sponsorship on a certain date. So if you could give us the information, just answer the questions that are on that page. This is also online, if I'm not mistaken. But you have to, I don't think they can apply online.
No, that you just print out.
Download it and then email it to us or mail it to us, whatever. Now, okay, this is the first time we've already tried to line these things up early in the year. The reason is if we knew that something was happening in September, we might be able to make sure we have money available for it. If we don't, and we give all the money out by June, your September thing is going to be hurt. So if it's possible to tell us in advance, we'd like to know that. Okay, I understand. It may not work that way. You may have something come up. Not to worry. Give us the information that you know now, and if something comes up later, pick up the phone and call. Okay, and we'll do what we can. I can't promise there'll be money available for it, but you can certainly try, and I'm not saying there wouldn't be. If it's really something that we've supported in the past and you just didn't get it in time, we'll certainly look at it and try to help if we can. Yes, ma'am.
What's the maximum funding for this?
It's about $5,000 is about, but there's no hard and fast rule about that. It really depends on the.
She's not asking about the sponsorship, or she's asking about the ship.
I'm sorry.
I was asking about the event.
Oh, you were pointing at that, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
Moving around again.
Yeah. Shaping Tomorrow is about 30,000. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Helping Today is about 30,000. The sponsorships are maxed at about 5, and they're not many 5s. They're mostly, $500, $250, $1,000, something like that. It's really the range that they're, are in. But every once in a while, there's some kind of a big event somebody's having, and That's Mike Batchelor and Aaron Fessler, who runs our communication department, make those decisions. They're just asking for you to give us a heads up about what may be coming in, if you can. Now, oh wait, there was one other question about, Aaron, you asked about the capital campaign, was that part of your question? Okay. All right, yes ma'am.
On this form, there is no line to ask how much you're asking for.
Oh, there isn't?
No. So, if you just write it in the description, I don't see a spot where it says how much are you requesting.
Okay. Well, it might be worth you putting that in there. Wouldn't it? Yeah. Slight oversight on our behalf.
Whatever.
Maybe in the description of the event, you could insert that. We need $5,000 or $150
So like,
for
for
X.
instance, I've never done this one before. So say, for instance, because we are having a 20th anniversary event for the community.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to say, like, I am requesting $1,000, and do I have to state that the $1,000, can you do a generic would help defray the costs of the
I
event?
think
Or do you have
so.
to say,
It's advertising.
500 is going to be for a tent, 200 is going to be for
No,
marketing?
I don't think so.
300 for food?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it's
You're
a
asking for-
generic, I'm asking for $1,000, 500, 3,000.
Yep.
To defray the costs and describe.
To support this particular
support-
event.
To support the event.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And then this will come in, and if there are questions, these will go to Aaron Fessler, who's our Director of Communications, and Mike. If they have questions about it, they'll pick up the phone and call you. But this gets you on the list anyway.
Okay.
And,
I did tell Aaron about that at the.
oh, you did?
Yeah. she's like,
Okay.
"Oh my God."
This is the first year
They're
that
doing
she's
this,
done
yeah.
this, so. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question. On the event request form, let's say we ask for $1,000. Now, are they gonna look at that and say $1,000 no, but maybe we can do $500?
Possibly.
Possibly, or is it probably like,
No, they may negotiate with you. You know, they may not have the dollars available for the total amount, but they may be willing to sponsor it for this much. Would that be okay? They'll get back to you on that. Yeah.
I was just wondering, what to kind of shoot for? Like maybe they only have room for $3,000.
I think that's why this is a new process. They get requests throughout the whole year, so they're trying to get them up front to say, okay, we have a pot of $50,000 or $10,000. Let's see how many people.
Sure.
So I think they're gonna, from what I understand from Playhouse, they're gonna see exactly how many people they can fund and hopefully as many as possible. And if they can't, then they will look and say, we want to support you, but we just can't support you at this level.
Right. All right. What other? Anything, my colleagues? Anything else that we haven't covered, or anything else that you think we ought to share? All right. Are there other questions that you guys have? Yes, ma'am.
Is the Shaping Tomorrow project, does it run off of the same application?
No, it's a different
format?
application.
Okay, yeah. Is
If
that
you're interested in
online?
the Shaping Tomorrow, then I do that, so talk to me directly about that. It's a different process entirely. Yes,
I
sir.
didn't see an application for the community fund drive grant.
It's on the website.
It is on the
It's
website?
on the website. But it requires a pre-application meeting first, too. So, like these others, you can't get into it until you come and then we give you the code. But there's an application process on the website. Just talk to me about it, and then we'll give you the application, not for the passcode that you could go on and fill it out. All right, if anything comes up that you have any additional questions, please let me know. Don't hesitate to call. Our job is to try to make this as helpful as possible to you so that you put a grant application in that has a good chance to succeed. So, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.